Well, let's prep for your real estate exam. And how do we do that? With lots of questions and answers for national and Texas state. Okay, here we go. So you see on the screen, we're using this book. We're continuing with the national questions on this book, Real Estate Exam, 4th edition. Okay, it is by Learning Express. It's an awesome book, an old one. However, for national, it is awesome. And I say it's awesome, awesome, awesome because it's got 4 prep exams, 4 of them with 80 questions for national and 30 questions for Texas state, which is the second half of our class. It's got a real estate refresher course, math review, and glossary. It is awesome, guys. And although it's an old book, it's excellent. Sometimes some of the questions, according to my past students, have been identical on the exam. Don't quote us on that. This is what my students have mentioned. Because there are hundreds and hundreds of exams. Hi, Rachel. Good morning. There's hundreds and hundreds of exams when you go to the test date, if you happen to go more than once. So never expect that you're going to get the exact same exam or that it's going to be similar to a prior one. Hi, Joshua. And you're going to also see questions that you may never have seen. So expect that. When you're studying for your exam, make sure that when you go through the questions, you get 100%, not just 70 or 80, because the books are usually a little bit easier. And the actual exam questions on the test date are typically harder. Remember to skip the first 5 questions and the math. They are typically the toughest in an exam and get students nervous, anxious, and lose focus. Come back to them, do all the easy ones, and come back to them at the end, okay? Before going to another, let's say if you're doing the national before you go to the state, if you do the state first before you go to the national. All right, so let's get started. We're continuing with exam number 4, okay? And question number 36. We did 35 in the last session on Wednesday. And when you start participating, hey, I invite you to do it. Type in the question number and the letter answer. All right, a partially amortized loan wherein the last payment is larger than the previous payments is referred to as what? So what kind of loan is it? That's amortized, yet the last payment is larger than all the others. A, an index loan. B, a balloon loan. C, a term loan. Or D, a percentage loan. Type your answer in the chat. And we'll be back and see how everybody does. Okay, so far I have B. And hi, Lisbeth. Good morning. Why won't this let me scroll down? Oh, I can't type the answer. Let's see here. And yes, you are correct. The answer is a balloon loan, right? It explodes to a large payment, just like when you're blowing a balloon. It's gradual. So every month they're paying the partial payment, which is a principal and interest and maybe taxes and insurance. But then it goes to the maximum and it pays a large amount, which is basically the principal that is left over and whatever the term might be. So this could be an ARM loan, amortized rate mortgage. And that could be a 1-year, 3-year, 5, 7, 9, 10. They're typically odd number loans, and sometimes they're interest only. Many investors will use those types of loans when they want it for a short term when buying and selling property, which you may end up doing sometime later. My fingers are typing like crazy here. All right, number 37. If a broker negotiates on behalf of both the buyer and the seller, this would indicate some form of what? A, subagency, B, multiple levels of representation, C, dual agency, or D, coercion. So keep in mind, this is not Texas portion. This is for all states. These are national questions that apply to anyone in the United States. Type your answer in the chatty chat. So far, I've got C. Remember to type the question number and the answer. Thank you. And yes, the answer is C, right? Dual agency. A broker in many states can represent both sides, and even a realtor. In some states, like in Oregon, the broker is equivalent to a salesperson here in Texas, and then the principal broker is considered the broker. So it depends on where you're at, what state, whether you're called brokers when you're a salesperson or whether it's an actual broker who is the principal broker. But the answer is C, dual agency. In Texas, we don't have dual agency, right? So a broker who would do that in Texas would be the intermediary. Ooh, I was going to type B. Okay, 37C. All right, number 38. The legal remedy in many sales contracts which allows the non-defaulting party to force the sale is what? So the legal remedy in purchasing, buying, and selling contracts which allows non-defaulting, the party that is not at fault, to force a sale is A, bilateral promises, B, earnest money, C, specific performance, or D, punitive damages. Type your answer in the chatty chat. And anyone who just came on, we are doing national questions, applies to all 50 states. All right, so far I've got C. Anyone else? It is not D, Lisbeth. Take another attempt before I type the answer. That way I'll take a sip of coffee. Much better. Yes, the answer is specific performance. All contracts, even relationships between broker and a client, which is an agency, each party has to perform. So we all have specific performances. And that's where the contract, usually the earnest money is the remedy, right? However, what is the legal remedy in many sales? It's specific performance. If somebody doesn't perform like the buyer, then the seller gets the earnest money. If the seller doesn't perform, the buyer could take the seller to court. Number 39. An owner who transfers real property through a will is known as A, testator, B, legatee, C, divisee, or D, beneficiary. So remember, you have owners with a will, without a will. Type your answer in the chat. Okay, so far, I just typed the answer for the prior question. So don't let that distract you. Okay, so far I've got, hi Rosaura, good morning. It is an awesome morning. But hey, I didn't want to get up. I went partying yesterday after a EXP event and stayed out late. But I have fun. And yes, oh no, it is not D. An owner who transfers real property through a will is not the beneficiary. They are the testator, right? When there's a will, there are a testate. Without a will, within, without, intestate. So the answer here is 39A, testator. A beneficiary would be in the case of you have a deed of trust. Whenever there is a trust, there's a trustor, a trustee, and a beneficiary. So let's say you have a whole life insurance policy, right? You're the beneficiary, you're the owner of that policy, and your family members may be the beneficiaries. Number 40. You were going to say yeah. I like the fact that you make other expressions, okay? I'm not the only one. But that's okay. Sometimes we've got to go with the first thought in our mind. Sometimes when we give it too much thought, then we doubt ourselves. Right? So the answer was A, testator. Okay, number 40. Public land use controls are created by zoning ordinances. Which of the following is not a zoning classification? A, single family dwelling, B, leasehold estate, C, general retail sales, or D, manufacturing. So public land use. Common sense, think, how is public land going to be used? And which one does not apply to it being considered public land by zoning ordinances? All right, so I've got B and D. No, it is not D. Take another attempt, Rosaura. So which one is not zoning? So whenever you're driving around town, you see different type of zones, right? Residential, land, farm, lots, okay? You see commercial, you see industrial, right? Those are different types of zones. And in between each zone, there is a buffer, that it's space of land that separates two different types of zoning. There's multifamily zoning, single family zoning. So the answer here, the one that is not a zone ordinance, is leasehold estates. Okay, a leasehold estate is somebody that has an interest to be in an estate, somebody else's land. So they hold it with a lease. So the answer is 40B. Leasehold estate is not a zoning ordinance. Okay. Single family, then there's a multifamily, and then there's, let's say, like dual property. There's like R1, R2, R4, RM, multiple. So they have, and then there's C, and there's I for industrial. There's agriculture will have like an A in front of it. So you're going to learn those types of things once you're practicing real estate and you start looking at county records. Whenever you're going to list a client's property or researching, what kind of property is this? You'll see a little designation in the county records of how it is identified. Okay, number 41. What did the 1972 amendment add to the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968? Okay, remember the Federal Fair Housing Act kept adding more protective classes, okay, as the years went on. So in 1972, what was added to the original Federal Fair Housing Act? A, qualifications as to the age of children in certain housing facilities. B, landlords making reasonable property alterations for handicapped tenants. C, operation of an adults-only apartment complex. Or D, display of equal housing poster in broker's place of business. Come on, take a chance. If you don't know, tear it down by process of elimination. No, it is not B, and it is not A. So Federal Fair Housing Act, right? That is protecting the consumer, and sometimes certain things need to be displayed. It's not the protective classes, okay? This is protecting the general public and making announcements. So yes, the answer is D, making the public aware, okay, of Federal Fair Housing protection. Congress requires all brokers to display the HUD, okay, equal housing poster in their places of business. And you'll also see it in other commercial businesses. So D, display of equal housing poster in broker's place of business. Very good. Number 42. All right, number 42. If a seller's agent shares his commission with a buyer's agent, seller agent has the listing, shares the commission with the buyer's agent. Okay, so each agent is representing someone. Then A, this is not necessarily an indication of agency representation. B, the seller's agent may advise the seller of this cooperation. C, the buyer's agent does not have to disclose this to the buyer. D, the seller's agent may deduct that amount. So 42. Okay, in some states, there may not be a requirement to have agency representation in order to get paid. Some customers do not want to be represented. Okay, so does the fact that a seller's agent is paying a buyer's agent for them bringing a ready, willing, and able buyer, does that mean that the buyer is being represented by that agent or not? The answer is actually 42A. This is not necessarily an indication of agency representation, because the buyer might be a customer and the buyer agent is actually a sub-agent, which is allowed in some states. It is allowed in Texas. However, most brokers are going to ask you to have a buyer's representation agreement so that each party is represented. However, a buyer agent can get paid without having an agency relationship with a client or with a customer. Therefore, as long as they are licensed, the seller's agent can pay the buyer's agent a commission. Righto, righto. Somebody said D, the seller's agent may deduct that amount. Deduct that amount from what? No. The seller's agent has to pay the buyer's agent for bringing a ready, willing, and able buyer. Now, the buyer agent doesn't have to disclose that to the buyer, but that's not the correct answer. And the seller's agent may advise the seller of this. Well, that's actually in the listing agreement. It's already on the listing agreement that the seller agent is going to share part of the commission with the buying agent, right? Because that's who's going to bring the majority of the buyers. It's a buyer agent. The seller agent is there to promote, advertise the property, market it, and attract a ready, willing, and able buyer or realtor that brings that buyer. So many times clients will get upset. Well, my realtor that has the property listed isn't showing the house. You know, like here in San Antonio, there's 14,000 realtors. Anyone could show that house. So in your area, you may have tons and tons of realtors. Anyone can show it and bring that offer. It's not necessarily going to be the listing realtor, but that's our responsibility to educate the client. Okay, that's not small enough. Okay, for example, this is the long question. I would say, hey, man, I'm going to skip this and do it later if I'm not a very fast reader. 43. A real estate broker offers the services of both residential brokerage and mortgage brokerage to his clients through his real estate company and his mortgage company. What are his legal obligations in this arrangement? Okay, real estate broker offers the services of both residential brokerage and mortgage brokerage. What does that realtor have to do, or broker? A, he must comply with the Real Estate Settlements Procedures Act and disclose its affiliated business arrangement to consumers before closing. B, he must comply with the Truth in Lending Act and disclose this affiliated business Truth in Lending Act and disclose its affiliated business arrangement to consumers before closing. C, he must give consumers a reduction in fees if they use services of both companies. Or D, he is not obligated to do anything since the businesses are totally separate. Okay, we always have to do what? I'm going to use the word inform. However, so which would be the correct answer here? And sometimes I say the word must can trigger us to answer it incorrectly, but that's not always the case. Okay, so far I have 43B. There are two answers that could be correct. However, the correct answer is A. He must comply with the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act and disclose this affiliate business arrangement to consumers before closing. So that's the Real Estate Settlements Procedures Act, which talks about the cost of purchasing, okay, or the cost of selling. B says he must comply with the Truth in Lending Act and disclose this affiliate business arrangement to consumers before closing. Well, it actually falls under the Real Estate Settlements Procedures Act. So RESPA requires settlement services providers to disclose this business relationship to consumers if the owner has a 1% interest or more of any other business services being offered. And in this case, the broker is doing both residential brokerage and mortgage brokerage. So it must be disclosed according to the Real Estate Settlements Procedures Act. Okay, this other one has to do Truth in Lending Act, okay, disclosing and providing, cost. But here it's the Procedures Act on how to perform real estate and disclosing any type of relationships we have with other businesses. So very good for those of you. My gut was saying 8. Yeah, follow your gut. So here, Joshua is saying, so, a lot of times, some people don't believe in following your gut, but I tell you what, a lot of professionals, a lot of millionaires, people, they follow their gut instinct. And most of the time, it'll be accurate. Everybody's different, okay? Number 44. All right, so very good for 43A. A residential broker usually relies on which form of valuation to assist the seller in setting the listing price? So residential broker is going to use what form of valuation to help the seller come to the right price, right? Not to over price it or not to really underprice it. A, ad valorem tax assessment. B, fee appraisal prepared by a licensed appraiser. C, cost approach analysis. Or D, competitive market analysis. Okay, so far I have D. Anybody else? Welcome, Dan. So anybody that just came in, we are doing national questions and answers, which applies to all 50 states. And this is an excellent book, all right, that we are using here. This book here, it's the Texas Real Estate Sales Exam. But of course, any state that you're at is going to have a national portion and a state section. So the national portion of this book is excellent. It's an old book, yet a lot of questions are almost similar to the exam. All right. Yes, it is the competitive market analysis. That's called the what? CMA. Okay. And there are two different types of CMAs. The competitive market analysis, which in this case is for a seller. Why? We got to look at the competition. So what other properties are active? And of those that were active, how long did it take for them to get an offer? And then how long did it take for them to be sold? All those things are very important. How much does the competition have it on the market for? How days on market for going under contract and days on market for getting it sold. That'll help us guide them on making the right decision to put the property on the market, depending on their timeline. Okay, how fast do they want to sell? If they only want to test the market, we don't recommend doing that, okay, because it could impact them negatively if they stay on the market too long in a market that is changing really fast. So the answer was D, a competitive market analysis, right? A CMA. Okay, see, I don't see any questions. Everybody doing good. Let me check here. Okay, nobody's posting on the business page. Okay, moving right along. Number 45. Charlie and Marie leased a house for 12 months with a requirement for a 30-day notice to terminate at the end of a lease, or it will become a month-to-month arrangement. Right? So if you ever had experience leasing, put yourself in those shoes. So they have what kind of a lease? A, periodic estate. B, estate for years. C, estate for years with a conversion to a tenancy at will. Or D, estate for years with a conversion. Conversion to, a periodic estate. Here, let me minimize this. Okay, so Charlie and Marie leased the house for 12 months, and it requires a 30 days notice to terminate at the end of the lease, or it becomes a month-to-month arrangement. So what kind of a lease is that considered? A, periodic estate. B, estate for years. C, estate for years with a conversion to a tenancy at will. Or D, estate for years with a conversion to a periodic estate. It is not B. Take another attempt. Hi, Gina. Oh my gosh, I just saw you on YouTube, but I can see you here on StreamYard. So wait, B is 3 days. 3 days? No, it says 30 days with a requirement of 30 days notice. So they leased it for 12 months. So there's two things happening here. So it was for 12 months, but then it converts. So there's possible of two answers that could be correct, right? C or D. So it's either C or D. Periodic estate, yes, it's a monthly lease. However, it doesn't talk about it converting from a 1 year lease. I'm sorry, it's a 1 year lease converting to a month-to-month if they continue to stay there after it terminates, right? So there's a conversion from 1 year to then month-to-month at the end of the lease. The answer is D, 45D. It is an estate for years. So they have an interest for 1 year, yet it will then convert to a periodic estate, right? A periodic estate is a 30-day, period, month to month. That is a periodic estate. Estate for years can be for multiple years, right? It can be 1 year or multiple years, but then it doesn't meet the requirement of what happens when it becomes month to month. Well, it goes from an estate for years and it converts to a periodic. So it does both. It has estate for years and then periodic. So A or B isn't correct. C says tenancy at will. Well, no, that's not the case. It's not that type of estate. So the answer was 45D. And make sure you all pay attention to what I'm typing in case I ever type it wrong. Okay, because sometimes I do. All right, number 46. Oops, it's on the other side. Okay, any questions? No? Nope. Okay, very good. Let's keep on going. When a borrower pledges more than one property as collateral for a loan, the loan is called what kind? So there's different types of loans, right? So it pledges more than one property as collateral to the lender. Is it a package mortgage, B, a balloon loan, C, a blanket mortgage, or D, a hypothecation? So type your answer in the chat. Okay, so far I have C and D. No, it is not D. So take another attempt. Okay, I have, let's see, A, C, D. Ooh, no, it is. Let's see. Well, at least nobody answered B. It is not balloon. So it's either A or C. Okay. It's either A or C. So take another attempt. Okay, the answer is actually a blanket mortgage. So it's like having a whole bunch of kids on a bed covered by one blanket. You can take out one at a time. So a borrower pledges more than one property as collateral for a loan. That type of loan is a blanket mortgage. And so then you might ask, well, let me type the answer first. So those of you that type C, that is awesome. So a blanket, then the difference between a blanket mortgage and a package mortgage is a loan secured by real estate in which the personal property and furniture is included in the purchase price. That is a package mortgage. So package mortgage includes real estate and personal. But when you're covering multiple properties, okay, to pledge for a lender, then it is a blanket mortgage. All right, number 47. Y'all got that? The difference package. In a package, like you go to a grocery store, right? You can have food or you can have other non-food, right? That's a package. You have different types. So here, blanket has to do only with real estate. Package has to do personal and real estate, which typically we don't like to deal with because personal property issues can be a problem when it comes to the appraised value, because the appraiser is not going to include the personal property as an appraisal. However, many retirement properties, like in subdivisions, 55 plus, manufactured homes, a lot of times those are sold with furniture. Those have to typically be bought with cash. Okay, for anybody who just came on, we are doing national questions that applies to all 50 states. Okay, number 57. A buyer is obtaining a conventional loan that requires a 29-33 ratio, 29/33 ratios. He earns $75,000 a year and has a $450 car payment. What is the maximum PITI payment? What does PITI stand for? Type it in the chat. What is PITI? Before we go to the answer here, because you need to know your acronyms. This is part of the vocabulary. We call it what? PD, right? But what does PD stand for? Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Awesome. Yes, that is what PD is. Thank you, Dan. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay, so did anybody calculate that? So a 29-33 ratio, earns $75,000 a year and has a $450 car payment. What is the maximum principal, taxes, insurance? Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay, so here what you would end up having to do, well, let me give you a chance and see if anybody comes up with the answer. Hey, Giselle. So yep, there it is. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay, so you know C is not the answer. So disregard C, right? You don't have a calculator, but looks like A or B. I'll agree with you that. Okay, so this is what Dan says. He says, I don't have a calculator, but it looks like A or B, right? Because C is too large, right? 21,000 as a maximum PD payment, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. That's a heck of a lot. And the last one, 2475, that might be a little too much. Okay, so the way this one is calculated, let me see if I can move the answer over here and I can show you. So they do 75,000 divided by 12 gives you 6,250 monthly income. And then they multiply that by 29%, which is 0.29, right? Which was the number on top, 29 over 33. So 1812 is the front end qualifier. Then they do 6250 times 0.33, okay, which was the bottom ratio, bottom part of the ratio, which is 2,062.50. Now from that number, they deduct the 450, and that gives them 1612.50 back end qualifier. That's the maximum PD. So the back end qualifier, right, is the lower of the two qualifiers. That is considered the maximum. Okay. Oops. So instead of trying to type it, I'll just show you the answer there. Okay, so the answer is A. So the low one, so let me see, hold on here. So 2062, right, was the high end, the 33%. But then he's got a car payment of 450. So lenders are going to want to know, okay, what's your debt to income ratio? You know, how much are your expenses every month, aside from your household expenses? Okay. So then the large number, right, was 2062 minus the 450. Okay, that's what brings us to the 1812. All right, very good. So that was number A. So as I mentioned, sometimes you want to skip the math problems and come to those later so that you can do those at the end. Oh, did I type the right answer? Yes, 1612.50, right? Right, because the top number, 29% times that, dividing that into 12, right, gave us the 1612. That's the minimum amount, maximum was the other. Math can be rather challenging, you know, on exams. But you will have a calculator. Okay, any questions? Nope. All right, number 48. If a contract ends with the sale of the property, what happens? A, an implied agency relationship exists for a period of time. B, the agency relationship of the seller and the listing broker continues until one formally terminates it. C, the agency relationship of the seller and the listing broker ends at that time. D, both principals must agree that the agency relationship has ended. So what happens at the end of the sale once a property closes, once it is sold? So anyone that just came in, we are doing national questions that applies to all 50 states. And thank you all for attending. There's a whole bunch of you here today, which is awesome on Saturday morning. Must be preparing for your exams coming this week. And let's see, anybody else? Okay, the answer is C. Once the property closes, okay, then the agency relationship ends. Now, the one thing that doesn't end, right, is confidentiality. So no notice is required because it's already part of the contract. That's the end of the agency. The confidentiality always remains. Just like with the accountant, with the doctors, attorneys, confidentiality is extremely important and remains forever. Okay, any questions? Nope. I moved my head around because I have 3 different monitors that I'm looking at. Okay. All right, number 49. A listing agent told the buyer's agent in confidence that the seller was anxious to sell the property and would likely reduce the price by several $1,000s. Wow. What should the buyer's agent tell the buyer? A, everything the listing agent told them. B, only the asking price and information on the sales in the area. C, to wait a few days and make a lowball offer. Well, it didn't say ball offer. Low offer. Or D, to make a low offer and ask for a quick closing. So when we represent a client, right, what is our fiduciary duty? Some things we keep confidential. Some things we must disclose, right? It is not B. Okay, remember, the listing agent gave more information than what they should have. They ruined the confidentiality, okay, of the seller. So they didn't follow their fiduciary duties. You don't tell the opponent, hey, my seller is anxious, or hey, my buyer is willing to offer more. No. That's our confidentiality between the client and us. However, if a listing realtor tells you as the buyer representing a client, then it's our fiduciary duty to disclose that to our buyer. We're not representing the seller. We represent the buyer. Our job is to inform them of anything that we are aware of and that we know that could impact them in their decision of buying or selling, well, in this case of buying, right? So the answer here is A. So it says, what should the buyer's agent tell the buyer? Everything the listing agent told them, right? It was the listing agent's fault that they disclosed about their seller. That's wrong. But it's not the buyer's agent's fault that the listing agent disclosed it. So, hey, I'm going to tell my buyer that they could probably offer a lower price. Right? Right. Oh, boy, I typed AQ. Sorry about that. The answer, my fingers typed a little too much. So yes, 49A, everything that the buyer heard, we disclose. All right, number 50. Another math problem. Don't be nervous. Hey, if you don't know it, take an educated guess. Think about it, all right, in reality. All right, number 50. A house was purchased 5 years ago for $90,000. So what happened in 5 years? Okay. The area has generally appreciated at an annual rate of 2%. How much should the house sell for? Right. So 5 years ago, it cost $90,000. Hi, Senya. Oh, and Giselle. Wow, more people showing up. Good morning. So then 5 years later, with a yearly appreciation rate of 2%, what price would that make the house today? Ooh, no, not an odd number. 2% every year, 2%, 4%, 6, 8, 10. In 5 years, it's 10%, right? And so it appreciated 10% in 5 years. 2% times 5, that's 10%. So you multiply 10%, right, times 90. And that gets us what? 99. So I said, ooh, not an odd number. But so I meant 2% times 5 is 10%. So the property is worth now 110% from the day it was purchased 5 years ago. So 110% of 90 is 99. Or you take 10% times 90, gives you 9,000. Add 90,000 plus 9,000, that gives you 99. So that's two ways. So you could use the T formula on here. If you all have heard of the T formula, right, in your math section. In the T formula, you have the part on the top, you have the percentage on the bottom, and you have the whole on the other side, right? But this one is an easier one to calculate. So correct. The answer, no, not 100. 10% times 90 is 9,000 plus 90 brings it to 99,000. I may have confused you when I said not an odd number. And 3 of the numbers are odd numbers, right? So I'm sorry if I confused you on that, if I misled you. So the answer is B, 99,000. So let's see, most everyone answered C, B, D, okie dokie. Yeah, lots of laugh. Yes, okay. So that's how you calculate this. This is an easier one, right? 2% times 5 years, that's 10%. 10% times 90, 9,000, and you add the 2. Or you use the T formula. And if you're not experienced with the T formula, go and study that T formula, because that T formula is going to help you answer a lot of math questions, a lot of math problems on the exam. Okay. So let me put on here, learn the T formula. And if you're not sure what the T formula is, Google it. You'll find out much quicker than going to search on your book. Okay, so that is the end of the national portion of today's class, today's session, today's webinar, whatever we want to call it, right? Today's tutoring. So take a moment, break, get up, walk a little bit, and we'll continue with state for Texas. Okay. So those of you are another state, you could still attend and see what, you know, how some state questions are developed, okay, how some state questions are used. But every state is going to have certain state questions different because the laws in every state are different. I mean, some things are going to be the same, all right, in state questions. However, it's best that you learn it from a book that has state portion, and you all look for things online that may be free. Other websites, other tutoring classes. There's basically no one that does one on every state. Well, there is one YouTube channel that has a little bit of state questions for all 50 states. So this will be the book that we're going to be using. I just purchased this book to continue on the Texas state question portion. All righto. And again, you know, this book has, I think, 4 exams. You see here, it has practice test 1. It has the national portion, the state portion, then the national portion answers, and the state portion answers. So I like those books that explain the answers. Okay, so I typically will research, you know, books to find one that also includes vocabulary. However, this one does not have vocabulary. But most important is having the questions and explain the answers so that you can get a quick idea of what the answer is going to be, instead of taking a lot of time to go research it. If it's an area that you're weak on, yes, then you want to go and review the summary of that section. Oh, wrong one. We're starting with hold on. We're starting with test number 2, state portion. There we go. Okay, ready? Get your Texas thinking cap on. Texas state questions. All right, here we go. Number 1, who has the authority to issue or revoke real estate licenses? A, TREC, B, TREC governor, C, TRELA, or D, broker lawyer committee? Okay, so far we have Rosaura with A, which is TREC. Remember, this is your opportunity to practice the exam. Okay, so type the answer in. If for some reason you get it incorrect, I will, you know, explain why. And yes, number 1 is A, TREC. All right. All right. Awesome. Very good. And that'll probably be similar in every state, but I can't guarantee that. So it's best to look on your stake section. Let's see if I do this. Nope. All right, number 2. What is the purpose of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board, abbreviated TALCB? A, to safeguard appraisers regarding real estate transactions. B, to coordinate and create rules for real estate professionals to follow. C, to manage communications with licensed appraisers, professionals. Or D, to safeguard consumers regarding matters of real estate property appraisal services. So Texas Appraisers Licensing and Certification Board, right? They're the ones that license, approve appraisers, right? Just like Texas Real Estate Commission licenses us. So do they safeguard appraisers regarding real estate transactions, or do they safeguard consumers regarding matters of real estate property appraisal services, or manage communication with licensed appraisal professionals, or coordinate and create rules for real estate professionals? Well, it's not A or B, right? Because talks about real estate transactions. So it's either C or D. Okay, so we're on a roll. Yes, the answer is D, to safeguard consumers regarding matters of real estate appraisal services. Very good. Oh my gosh. I meant to type 2D, and let's see, can I correct that? Edit? No. Okay, so it's 2D. All right, number 3. A real estate agent has been issued a penalty for violating TREC rules and regulations. How does that agent have to pay the penalty? How long does that agent have to pay the penalty? A, 7 days, B, 60 days, C, 30 days, or D, 1 year? Kind of think about it, all right? And use a little bit of common sense. You know, some of them is too long, some of them is not enough. So it could either be B or C, right? So which one is the most accurate? In this case, the answer is C, 30 days. It's either 30 or 60 days. However, 30 days, 1 month is usually sufficient, okay, for them, for an agent to pay the penalty. All right, number 4. Oops, no, that won't work. Okay, number 4. Which of the following will cause suspension or revocation of a license? Which causes suspension or revocation, revoking the license? A, guaranteeing future profits. B, failing to specify a termination date in a buyer's representation agreement. C, giving legal advice to a client. Or D, all of the above. So think, can we guarantee the future? Do we have a crystal ball? No. Failing to specify a termination date, right? All documents have to have a start and end date. Legal advice, are we attorneys? No. So all of the above, right? Awesome. Way to go. Yes, all of the above can cause suspension or to get our license revoked. Number 5, blank needs to be displayed in the broker's office and cannot be altered in any way. So what is that blank? A, consumer protection notice. B, broker's client reviews. C, any conflict of interest. Or D, none of the above. We kind of covered this, right, in the national portion. Not kind of, we did, but in a different way. Actually, no, it was almost the same question. Okay, so far I have A and A. Apple, apple. Apple. Another apple. And yes, that is correct. Consumer protection notice. And you will see that usually in an open area of the office, sometimes in the lunchroom, in a bulletin board. Number 6, where can earnest money, I didn't show the answer. Where can earnest money be deposited? What is earnest money? Hopefully you know that by now. A, broker's personal account. B, broker's operating account. C, escrow account. Or D, account set up by state government. Quick answer. So far I've got a C. We're on a roll. Anybody else? C, oui, monsieur. Yes, the answer is escrow account. Awesome. Way to go. Number 7, which is not a requirement for obtaining a Texas real estate license. A, 18 years of age or older. B, U.S. citizen or legal alien. C, meet Trex qualifications. Or D, a valid driver's license. Which one is not a requirement for obtaining a Texas real estate license? And more than likely similar in other states. Y'all are doing awesome on the state section, or state portion, I should say. In the meantime, anybody that's watching this on YouTube, remember to go click that thumbs up, give me some support, show some love. Anybody who hasn't been to my YouTube channel, hey, my goal is to reach 1,000 by the end of this month to make my grandson proud. So let everybody know. If you haven't subscribed, please go to YouTube AgentPrep and subscribe to my channel. Click that little bell so you're the first to get notified, and click that thumbs up. Okay, click that thumbs up, all right, and show some love. Awesome. The answer is D, a valid driver's license. Now, it'll be kind of challenging, right, not to have a driver's license, but in some areas, maybe they're just going to focus on one subdivision. They don't need a driver's license, right? Or they've got a personal driver. All right, number 8. A licensee who has been convicted of a felony must notify the blank. A licensee who has been convicted of a felony must notify the blank. A, Trella. B, Office of the State Governor. C, TREC. Or D, they do not need to notify anyone. Really, huh? We don't have to notify anybody? Uber. Yeah, that's a good one, Dan. Uber. I didn't think about that when I was saying if they don't need a driver's license, they could have a professional driver. Yeah, or Uber, right? Uber can sometimes be inexpensive unless you're driving really far. And yes, all of you are awesome. 8C, TREC. And what does TREC stand for? Texas Real Estate Commission. Right? Know your acronyms. Very good. Y'all are on a roll. Love it. All right. Let me see if I can, because the top portion. Oh, no, that's not good. Leave it there. All right. Number 9. So number 8 was TREC. A broker is responsible for all professional acts of the sponsored salesperson, including blank. A, advertising. B, use of promulgated forms. C, obtaining the salesperson's license. Or D, A and B only. So broker is responsible for all professionals acts of the sponsored salesperson, including what? Advertising? Yes, we got to stay in line and follow the rules, right? Promulgated forms? Yes. We need to use the Texas Real Estate Commission promulgated forms, unless an attorney writes them because the buyer client wants that, or C, that they have obtained a salesperson's license, right? Yes, awesome. 9D, A and B only. You know, the broker has to make sure that anybody they take on has a real estate license. However, it's us individually that has to obtain the salesperson's license, right? Or broker when we already have 4 years in real estate in Texas. We can go for the broker license. But yeah, it's not the broker's responsibility for us to obtain the salesperson's license unless they want to be sponsored by that broker. Then they want to make sure they do have a license. But the little key word here is obtaining the salesperson license. No, right? So advertising and use of promulgated contracts. So the answer is D. Very good. Moving right along. Number 10. Texas does not practice blank, which is when a subagent owes the same fiduciary duties as an agent to the agent's principal. So Texas does not practice blank, which is when the subagent owes the same fiduciary duties as an agent to the agent's principal. A, dual agency, B, subagency, C, designated agency, or D, non-agency. Okay, the actual answer here is B, subagency. Okay, because Texas does not practice subagency, which is when a subagent owes the same fiduciary duties as an agent to the agent's principal. Okay, so the subagent actually ends up owing the responsibility or fiduciary duty to the listing agent because they don't represent anyone. Okay, subagency, a subagent doesn't represent the buyer, so we don't practice subagency. So that would be, says not practice in Texas. Subagency occurs when a sales associate from another brokerage shows property to a buyer. The subagent works with the buyer and owes the fiduciary duties to the listing broker and seller. So we don't like to practice that in Texas. Even though our contracts do have on their subagent, we will have them get a buyer representation agreement signed and actually represent the client or the customer who then becomes a client. So the answer was B, subagency. So dual agency is that you represent both sides, okay? But it's asking, Texas does not practice what, which is when a subagent, okay, owes the same fiduciary duties as an agent to an agent's principal, which would be to the seller. That is subagency. Okay, dual agency is when they do practice representing two different clients, okay, with the same transaction. That is illegal. Okay, but we don't practice subagency. All right, number 11, even though it is on our contracts. Oh, whole answer is not on there. Okay, number 11. What is a substantive dialogue? What is good? I'm glad you understand, Rosaura. A written or in-person conversation regarding specific real property. B, a conversation between seller and buyer regarding any dispute. C, a dialogue with TREC regarding real estate disputes. Or D, a meeting with two real estate agents regarding. Yeah, no wonder Rosaura answered that one so quickly. Now, substantive dialogue means when they are talking a conversation among themselves on a specific real property, a specific real property. Not like at an open house talking about different properties or what's in the area. It's when they're talking about a specific property, okay, with a customer or, basically with a customer. So it can be written or verbal, right? All right, number 12. We're moving right along with the state. Oh, dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. That didn't work. Let's see. All right, that worked better. All right, number 12. Which is not considered a fiduciary duty? Old car, right? Stands for our fiduciary duties, right? The acronym, old car. A, placing the client's interest above their own interest. B, high duty of care for the client. C, duty to the brokerage to bring in clients. Or D, honesty and fairness to all parties. Which one is not a fiduciary duty? This one should be an easy one. Well, the other one was easy too. So far, I've got CC, oui, monsieur. That's from Tyler Perry, Medea. Awesome, on a roll on these Texas questions. Yes, the answer is duty to the brokerage to bring in clients. No, that's not one of our fiduciary duties, right? Because our fiduciary duties are to our client, not to our broker or sponsor. Okay, number 13. When a factory causes pollution to a nearby house, the house suffers from blank. What? Factory causes pollution to a nearby house. That house suffers from what? A, economic obsolescence. B, technology obsolescence. C, legal obsolescence. Or D, aesthetic obsolescence. Right? There's 3 different types of obsolescence, okay? Remember to understand those 3 and the difference in which ones they are. You guys are, you ladies and gentlemen, not you guys. You ladies and gentlemen, man, you're ready for the state exam. Or at least according to these questions here, right? And this is a new exam. This is a new book published this year. You are correct. Economic obsolescence, right? There's economic, physical, and functional obsolescence. Very good. All right, number 14. What is the 90-day core hour requirement that needs to be met within the first 2 years of licensing? A, state licensing education. B, salesman's annual education. C, real estate licensing course. Or D, no core hour requirement is needed. No, not deterioration. It's economic, physical, and functional. Deterioration would be the physical portion of it. Functional means it doesn't meet the functionality of a family, or it's going to cost money to change it, but it can be changed. Well, this is an interesting answer. Final answer B. Oh, no, I was reading this comment. Final answer B. Okay. I wasn't giving you the answer. Okay, I probably would have agreed with a lot of you saying the state licensing education. However, state licensing education, that's when you go and take all the courses to get your license. But this is the annual education. Actually, it's the 90 hours that are required, right, in the first 2 years. So the correct answer here, I'm even having to look at this. It says salesman's annual education, which is the required education that a licensee needs to complete during their first 2 years of being a licensed agent in order to renew the license. It's called the sales agent, SAE, right? Instead of salesman, it's SAE, right? Sales agent education. Those are the first 2 years, 90 hours. And then there's the mandatory education, right? And that's the 18 hours that we have to do every 2 years thereafter. So the first 2 years, we're required to do the 90 plus 18 hours, which is 4 for legal update 1, 4 for legal update 2. Okay, so that is 8, and then 10 other electives. So we have to continue learning. So you can get a lot of certifications with the 90 core hours. And please do not wait. Get those as soon as you can. Don't wait till the last year. Okay, you can get your GRE. You can get other certifications. It could be just 3 courses, each of 30 hours. Okay, or you could take a whole bunch of smaller ones, but then you're going to have to go to, title companies, lenders, other organizations will have 1-hour courses, 1-hour credits, or 2 or 3-hour credits. Okay, so that you can continue learning from them, or you can take full courses of 30 hours a piece, either online or in person. Sometimes these 30 hours, I'll do them in person. Most of the others, I do them online. So it depends. When you do them in person, you can go and interact with others. All right, number 15. So, we call it the sales agent education, SAE, right? It's SAE versus MAE, mandatory agent, MCE, mandatory continuing education, pardon me. Okay, SAE versus MCE, right? So sales agent education equals the 90 hours in first 2 years, right? And then, I should have copied that, darn it. And MCE equals mandatory continuing education. And those are the ones that we get every 2 years. And that was increased from 15 hours to 18 hours. So let me type the other equals sales agent education. Oops. 90 hours, first 2 years. Oh, I forgot to say MCE equals 18 hours. All right. Those are mandatory. The others are like apprentice, sales apprentice education. Actually, that's what it is. Sales apprentice education, not sales agent education. It's the apprenticeship that we must take the first 2 years is 90 hours. Sales apprentice, gosh, nobody corrected me. Apprentice education, okay, equals the 90 hours. Sorry about that. All right, number 15. Did y'all get that? Y'all, I'm here in Texas. Right, number 15. What is a non-resident broker? A broker who is not a resident of the county they are selling in the home. B, a broker who has a real estate license in another state but not in Texas. C, a broker with a Texas broker's license but with a no home or office in Texas. Or D, a broker who is not a U.S. citizen. Great, Giselle. A non-resident broker. Because remember, we can have multiple real estate licenses from different states. Or I should say, we can have a real estate license from different states. That gives us multiple licenses. One from Texas, California, Oregon, however, usually it's, adjoining states if you're in a borderline or another state that you used to live at. No, it is not B. Take another attempt at that, Rachel and Giselle and Joshua. And it is not D. The correct answer is C, a broker with a Texas broker's license, but with no home or office in Texas. So non-resident brokers licensed through TREC. Although they are licensed, they need to work for a broker that is a resident broker in Texas. So they might live in another state, but they have a license in Texas. Therefore, they need to hang their license with a Texas broker in order to practice real estate in Texas. So non-resident in a county, no, right? Or selling a home. You can be in any county in the whole, you can represent anybody in the whole state of Texas. Okay, when you have a Texas license. Let's see, a broker who has a real estate license in another state, but not in Texas, no. Okay, so it's a broker with a Texas broker license, but with no home or office in Texas. Okay. All right. So we just did 15 national questions and 15 state questions. We breezed through the state. You all did awesome on the state. That was a trick question, says Joshua. This is why you need to fully read every answer. Yes, and that's why sometimes I say the long questions with answers, sometimes I check them to come back to them later. I used to be a very slow reader, and I used to be so fearful of multiple choice exams. There are ways to know little keywords that will trick you to, get it right or wrong. Like, for example, on this answer, A says a broker who is, B says a broker who has, C says a broker with, D says a broker who is not. So the key word here to give you the right answer, a broker with a Texas broker's license, but with no home or office in Texas. The others are a broker who is not a resident, a broker who has a real estate license, or a broker who is. So individuals that know how to analyze multiple choice questions, oh my gosh, they can go through questions and whiz through them and they understand how teachers or book creators make these questions. I was not one of those. Okay, so I used to get so nervous, and I would take the whole 4 hours to take the exam. Some people can whiz through these and do it in 30 minutes or in an hour. It's amazing. One, they're speed readers, and they know the little analysis that a lot of book writers use, and what little words, okay? Let's see here. What little key words do it? Some of them, well, we know no core hours. That one wouldn't be it. Real estate license course. Well, they are real estate license courses, right? They're not the licensing education, because we already have our license, but we update our license education, right? So there's little keywords to look within the question and the answers to help you sometimes determine the right answer right away. Okay. And the way you get to know those is through practice, lots of questions and understanding the answers, but understanding what the question is asking, because it's real easy to, especially when they use not or only or except, right? Those a lot of times will confuse us. So be very careful when studying, but what makes it for you, one, know your vocabulary, okay? Secondly, practice, lots of questions and answers. Select books that also explain the answers, not just the letter answer, because they'll give you a little bit more detail, on the answer. And look for free books online. Don't start paying for everything that's out there. It depends on how often you study, how regular you study, and how committed you are to studying. And once you finish your classes, it's important to study every day and then take the exam. The longer you wait to take your exam, you can start to forget if you're not listening to videos, if you're not reading your books and practicing questions and answers. And when you practice those tests, get 100%, because the actual exams are much harder. Okay, they are. So you're very welcome, Rachel. And hey, y'all, I love doing this. I really enjoy helping y'all, and I want all of you to succeed and pass your exams. Remember to say, I pass, I pass, I pass. Okay, meditate, ask, believe, and receive. Okay, you receive what you believe. So we ask it, we believe it, and we receive it. Okay. Meditate on it and focus on it every day until you go and take the exam. If you don't pass the first time, hey, let it go. Don't punish yourself or say, oh man, it wasn't meant to be. I shouldn't do this. No. Don't think that way. All right. So just keep taking it. If this is something you really want and it's a passion, don't give up. Keep doing it until you pass it. It could take you 3 times, 6 times, 9 times. I've had students take it up to 10 times and pass, and they're doing awesome as realtors. So you're very welcome, Giselle. I will enjoy my weekend. Thank you. Oh, Joshua, you test on Friday. You've been amazing. Oh, thank you. I love the compliments. I love it. And Giselle says, do well, Joshua. And Rosaura says, thanks, Lily. You're very welcome, you all. I love you. Okay, until Wednesday. Catch you later. Till next time. Bye. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Lisbeth. All righto. Take a break. Enjoy. Don't go back and continue studying. All right. Take a break every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes, because you forget the beginning and the end of every study session. Hey, remember, I'm also a realtor, and I'm looking for realtors to join me at EXP. So let's talk about EXP. Once you pass your exam, we may be the option for you. Okay, we're not for everybody. We're a cloud-based company. We have the office on the cloud, but we have many opportunities of how to make money and awards that you get. And not just plaques. You get financial award like stocks. All right. With that said, until next time, this is Wow Lily Hendy coming to you with YouTube Agent Prep and just Agent Prep on Facebook.